Hello, everybody. Good to be in here, actually, and not from home. Nobody's seeing my home, so it's nice to be here. So today we're going to talk about, now we're going to talk about mobile games and market and a couple of trends. So a little bit about myself. I'm a CEO and a co-founder of Savage Game Studios. I'm also a founder of Deconstructor Fun, a blog and a podcast, and I'm an entrepreneur in residence in Play Ventures. So essentially, I eat, sleep, pray games, and that's all about me. The presentation will be from my point of view, and that is a point of view of a head of studio, if you will. And as a head of studio, you're always thinking about what kind of game you should be making for the market that there is. And you start off always with what is the game we, the team, want to make. Now, if this would be the only thing, you'd probably end up somewhere making Space Marines and Space Orcs. But luckily, you always have restrictions of what is the type of game you can build. And the third part that you always have to think about is what does the market want? And this presentation is really focusing on that green piece so that you can actually predict where to shoot and hopefully hit the right spot. And of course, I'm talking a lot about my own experience, and my own experience sometimes looks more like this. So hence, I hope you have better success with your shots. Anyway, there's a lot of data in this presentation, and the main sources for data for me have been, of course, Game Refinery. So I'm looking a lot into the taxonomy, and I've been taking a lot of data also from Sensor Tower, looking at different revenue data. Now, as you're seeing all the numbers, please have a grain of salt. They're more indicative of the direction rather than the actual numbers of the installs and revenue. So let's kick it off. For years, as I've been talking about the market, we've kind of presented that, hey, this is the situation. We're in a very mature and stable position on the mobile games market. And then 2020 came in, and it looked like something like this for the game developers. So when we look at the downloads and the spend, that was record high. Global game downloads up by 33%, and global consumer spend up by 26%. Nevertheless, the market is still mature despite incredible growth. The number of games has been stable for the last 3 years, and it actually decreased a little bit in 2020. And when we look at the games launched, sure, that went up, but as we know, there's a lot of hyper-casual games on the market, so they come and go, so hence, the amount of games stays quite stable. Now, I always like to talk about the top, because normally when people think about the top of the games market, they have a very different perception than in what it actually is. Now, when we talk about the top, we normally say that the top 100 games make all the revenues, and that's not actually true. They make half of the revenues, which is a lot, but this number is significantly lower than it was already last year. I think last year this was 68. And when we think about games that drive stable business, they're increasing year after year after year. So games that make over 10 million in monthly, not monthly, that would be great, in yearly revenues is already 860. And that is significant growth from the previous year, which was significant growth from the year before, and so forth and so forth. Now, as we're looking at the top, one of the misconceptions is that the games there are all the same. Well, not true. Last year, only 26% or 26 out of 100 games were there that have been there since 2017. And that is a half of what it was a year before, because last year, 55% of the games were there since 2017. When we look at the time to get to the top, that's again something that is a misconception, that it takes forever, for years and years and years. Look how long it took Roblox, how long it took Moon Active's game. Anyway, it's actually shorter, and it's shorter every year. Now it took on average only 8 months to reach the top 100. And finally, how many new games enter top 100? Normally we again have a misconception that only a couple of games can do it. You have to be the biggest publisher to launch, and that's the only way to get there. Not true again. Year before it was 28. In 2020, 42 games came into top 100. So, just want to get one misconception out. This is how people think the mobile games market. This is how it really looks like. And the top is just getting wider. Now, there's always a question of like how to become the top dog. Like, what do you need to have to enter that stable mountain? And there's 4 things. First of all, you have to have the marketing power. I mean by that, you have to have the resources to launch and grow your game, both the BI, the UA, and all the marketing resources regarding that. Secondly, you have to be able to grow your game through features, through live operations, and that requires product excellence. Number 3 is you have to have a diversified portfolio, because if you're only relying on certain games, things can happen. A new Battle Royale game, a new Roblox type of game, a new customization game that suddenly changes the conception of the market can influence your portfolio significantly if you're targeting only one audience. If you have multiple different audience, you're more safe. But then again, you also have to have genre mastery. You have to be making same type of games for, not same type of games, you have to be servicing the same audience so that you understand how to make games better for them. And that's, of course, a very different thing than having a diversified portfolio. But that's what it takes in 2021 to be a top publisher. So let's talk about the market. Last year, in 2020, casual games made almost 10 billion in in-app purchase revenues, almost 4 billion in ad revenues, and grew by 36%. And overall, casual games take 38% of all in-app purchase revenues and 77% of all downloads, naturally, because hyper-casual games are part of the casual games category. Now, keep in mind, when I'm going through these numbers, they're net revenues, and they're also excluding key Asian markets such as China, Korea, and Japan. On mid-core side, 10.4 billion in-app purchase revenues, revenue growth of 26%, 40% of all in-app purchase revenues, and only 30% of the downloads. Casino, naturally, was the biggest winner of the lockdowns. As the casinos closed down, new players come in, they play more of the casino games, and yeah, through that you get the nearly 50% growth of revenue year over year, and that's 18% of all in-app purchase revenues and only 2% of all downloads. And finally, sports used to be the smallest, still is the smallest, but nowadays actually slightly larger than 1 billion. Yearly revenues grew by 30%, only 4% of all in-app purchase revenues and 8% of the downloads. Now, normally when I go through these presentations, I started this way. I show the category, then I break it down to genres, then I break it down to subgenres. I might do things like, hey, look at the merge. It's been popping. Now it's still growing at 100%. And I would talk about the merge games, how you merge, how you harvest, how you discover. You do quests, then you design all your little pieces. There are top merge games. There are merge games that look like the top games that are doing pretty good. And there are merge games that are doing pretty much the same, but a little bit different. And then I would be talking about, look at the subgenre, the downloads are going up, so the competition is increasing, the revenues are going down, so there's a problem, you have to look at a different way of attacking this market. I would talk about making the same game for a different audience. Then I would present an idea of a game like this, a top war battle game. It's a strategy game, but actually in this strategy game, it's not only fighting against other players, you're also merging a bunch of stuff, you're building a base, and through that, you're reaching insanely high revenue rates and really good downloads. And then the comment would be, but yes, we understand, but this is a strategy game, it's a mid-core, it's against players. And I would bring in a case example number 2, which is Merge Plane. Very much a clicker game with no in-app purchases, but look at the amount of downloads, 84 million. And what I'm trying to say is this could be a good idea for a merge game because you would be doing the same game for a different audience, and that could be a great win. But we'd be talking about marketing in that situation, and that would be how to bring same game for a different audience, so how to cater a different audience with different marketing approach. And that's really where the trends for 2021s are coming from. So there's a little bit of a danger in the horizon, and the danger is coming in from ATT, of course, and that is the IDFA deprecation. And by danger, I mean danger towards game developers, not essentially for the customers. So what's going to happen in 2021 with ATT? Well, number one is studios will be, in my opinion, flying half blind. You won't know what kind of audience you're getting. You don't even know if they're organic or if you paid for them, who they are, what they do, where they're coming from, and that's very difficult for modern free-to-play studios. That will lead to a situation where you're starting to reduce spend. You're only favoring the channels that you know are favoring your game. And as you're reducing spend, the CPM will start to drop. And as the CPM drop, well, the ad monetization will start to decrease. And that will mean that when you're making new games, you're probably making games with broad appeal because it's very difficult to target individual smaller segments. So that means that games with high in-app ad revenue, as well as high average revenue per paying user, will suffer, because ones are dependent on the CPM and the others are dependent on highly targeted approach. And of course, at that situation, studios are talking about different solutions, how they can circumvent this type of problem. But the fact is that even though Google is not presenting with their version of ATT, they will most likely follow suit. So what does that mean on the trends? Number one is, I believe that there's going to be a resurgence of IP licensing deals. So what I mean by that is, as the targeting becomes more difficult, you're really trying to improve your IPM, the top of the funnel metric. And what better way to improve that is than actually have something that people know, something that you already have an audience for. The other reason for a resurgence of IP licensing deals is because entertainment companies are not doing too well at the moment. It's been a hot second since they've been able to film. They haven't been able to put new shows out. Nobody's going to movies. Things are getting difficult. So why not cater to a giant growing audience on mobile games? And number three is the streaming wars. Everybody has their streaming service nowadays. And streaming services are run through unique shows that draw people. And these unique shows need more channels to engage with the audience when they're not launching new seasons. So of course, in that case, games become a very important avenue to promote those shows. The second trend that we most likely will be seeing is product marketing. And product marketers are between the marketing team, or the performance marketing or UA team, and between the product team. So one of the important parts, and this is just coming even from my own daily work, is you'll need to understand better your players. And it's not only understanding the demographic of players, because now you can't just rely on Google or Facebook to optimize your marketing. Now you have to really understand your player base better, understand who they are, understand what they like, what are they looking for, how to engage with them. By understanding who your player segments are, you'll be able to calculate better total addressable market. It's not saying that, we're going to do game like CoinMaster, so we're going to take 20% of the CoinMaster revenue. No, not at all. It's more of understanding the whole category, then understanding different segments, and then understanding how many of those players are in that market based on the traits you're going after. And finally, it's about testing and constantly retesting your marketability. When you understand your players, when you understand your total addressable market, you're always optimizing your messages towards that audience and optimizing how you connect with them. And finally, the third trend that I see coming in 2020 is broadening of media mixes. So as I said, when top of the funnel becomes more important, you're making games with broader appeal. And as you're making games with broader appeal, you're probably using broader marketing mix at the same time. That means TV, billboards, podcasts, radio, influencers, all these different channels will be used to promote games. And what that means is you have to be very good at measurement of incrementality. And this is something that I doubt many studios can do themselves, so they have to rely on partners to be good at measuring the incrementality of their different marketing activities. And finally, as always, when one door closes, the next one opens up. And this really leads to studios and publishers that are eager to try something new, eager to change instead of clinging on what they've used before, to seize an opportunity with the market that is changing significantly due to the way we market games. That's my presentation for today. Thank you.
Super, thanks, man. Really, really interesting. It's kind of one of those things. It's been like a crazy year last year. Yeah. Lots of opportunity and so on. Now we're going to have another crazy year, right? Again, lots of opportunity and so on. Really makes like a big open net for creative thinking as well. Yeah. As you said, what has been established before, where you think is kind of, oh yeah, we just dump a bit of money and no, that's not how it's going to go and stuff like that. But in addition to all of that, also the other little thing that we've seen, right? Like with Genshin and with portability, right? And kind of, known IPs and stuff like that, right? And the fact that the devices themselves can actually now handle like the Black Deserts, the Genshins and stuff like that. The bigger games. Exactly, right? So what do you think?
What was the question? I mean,
should someone dump $200 million to bring
and someone that's a good question. So there are companies that need to place bigger bets, and they are doing that. The cost for production is constantly increasing. The use of, I mean, we just saw the publication of PUBG New World. No, I think it's called New World. Anyway, the newest PUBG game. So of course, if you have a strong IP that you know has a big appeal, it's easier to invest a lot into it. And I think, you know, the traditional AAA publishers are going to do more cross-platform games. But it's hard to tell somebody like, yeah, just put in 100 million and see where it takes you. That's a pretty crazy idea. So
we've got a couple of other, let's say, questions as well from the audience. Are there any market gaps that can be identified, blue oceans and so on?
Yeah, well, I was trying to point out that that's sort of not a blue ocean, but a blue spot, and that would be probably the best way to approach it. The way I try to identify different market trends is, of course, breaking everything down into genres, into categories, then genres, then subgenres, looking how they grow, going deeper into the growth. Is it only the revenues that is growing? What is happening on the download side? So that gives you a high-level picture. But then another point is of course you have to be looking at the game industry as a whole. You can't be looking only at mobile. Yeah. And I know that people are not doing that. Of course, there's Valheim that everybody's playing. Yeah. So now everybody's thinking Valheim for mobile. Yeah. Why not? That is a trend, but that's also the wrong way to approach it, because if you're thinking about it, how many others are thinking about it? And be like, only 5 people made it. Great. That means everybody can make it. So are you going to be the first to the market or the 110th? Yeah. In short, have a little bit of a critical, explore the market, see how things are going, see different categories, different genres, different subgenres, pick different ideas from outside mobile, and see how it sticks. And be critical with your thinking, because, again, if it's obvious, then it is obvious. Then that's not a competitive advantage. But if it's something different, then yes.
But then there's other kind of things which kind of seem obvious as well, right? Mm-hmm. Because, of course, we look at, let's say, gaming, let's say, as a platform, right? Because it's not just genres. I mean, if you play Coin Master, highly likely you play Homescapes, you probably play, let's say, Wordscapes and stuff like that. More than likely, right? But then you take, let's say, Project Makeover. Mm-hmm. Let's take episodes and then mix it, let's say, with, customization, let's say, and match 3 as well. Yeah. All kind of understood, let's say, the audience. Yeah. There was a gap right there in the market. Yes. I think they've filled it. Maybe we might see another couple of clones coming up or whatever. Yeah. So there is, let's say, a couple of different opportunities there.
Of course. And then I kind of tried to do that with the same game, different audience, but that was 2 same games and same audience. So yes, there are these type of mixes, but then again, Project Makeover is from AppLovin. So the resources are pretty different compared to others, and marketing power is on a whole different level. Yeah. But yeah, it depends on what kind of studio you are. There are smaller studios that are looking for true blue spots, and then there are bigger studios that are looking for blue oceans, because the need is different. But that was a good example. Yeah.
A couple in here. What is the best performing monetization feature in the RPG game?
Ooh, this is I think I should be asking this question from Game Refinery.
So it's calling a couple of analysts.
I think you need to ask the lads that are coming in here, but because I've been mainly playing shooter games as of late, so it's hard for me to say what would be the latest. But yeah, let's move it to the analysts.
All right, we'll ask them later.
I feel dumb answering that. They're much better than me.
It's like, what does he know about gotcha?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you see the casino market will evolve after the IDFA?
Ooh, casino is very interesting, because we're seeing real life casino coming into the mobile. Yeah. That is super interesting. We see betting, we see all these things coming to mobile. So I think as a whole, the market should be booming, because now it's, I don't want to say nonsensical, but you are kind of winning nothing by spending real money. What if that would be you'd be actually winning money? So of course, then we have other type of questions, like how legal that is, and so forth and so forth. But if we're seeing these real life casino companies coming in and actually have real life gaming on mobile devices, then that market is very, very interesting.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. And well, any takes in the casual market? So again, we've seen interesting games like Project Makeover and Grand Hotel Mania climbing the ranks. Do you think there's going to be any new trends following?
Oh, that's a good question, because the current trend that everybody is going into is the merge. And it's a little bit worrisome because most of the merge games look exactly the same. And I now understand why that trend is going so well, because every merge game at a small scale gets really good KPIs. Like, you're seeing insane retention. But then how do you scale if you look exactly the same as others? So my take for this is, if I would have to do casual games, I'd be more looking at hyper casual and what's happening there, and trying to marry it with different hybrid casual approach. So meaning, how can we actually add some kind of progression elements that would make this game monetize also through in-app purchases, not through ads? And that doesn't fit all the genres. It actually fits a smaller amount of genres, but nevertheless, there are plenty genres that have been untapped that could fill with the hybrid casual approach.
Yeah, that's for sure. One final one for you as well. What do you think about the rising importance of the developer brands, where players are starting to prefer known devs instead of smaller and new ones? Does this affect the UA?
Is this? I haven't seen any kind of stats for this. Yeah. I understand. Like, I know how Supercell is a great example. Everybody loves Supercell. Every time they come up with a new game, people are going crazy. Their Supercell idea is fantastic. They have a strong developer brand. But then there's EA that sometimes has a less strong of a brand, where players are more critical towards them. So I don't know. I honestly don't know what the effect is. Maybe this is something that should be A/B tested or seen.
Perhaps. But aren't we seeing it, let's say, at the moment, with a lot of consolidation of stuff? I mean, there's a lot of, let's say, like you got, that the big Zynga moves, the EA moves, like, and so on.
I really don't see that affecting the casual player that much. Whether they're playing Toy Blast, it was a Peak game. Yeah. Now they're playing Toy Blast, but it's Zynga game. Does that really play that much of a difference? Because I'm sure that the players know Farmville and they kind of remember that, but do they really know Zynga? I feel like sometimes when we're looking at this, it's coming from the perspective of a game developer, and we're so in it that we think about these things. But I don't know. I don't think that there are that many mobile developers that have a strong developer brand like a Blizzard or a Supercell or those two.
Well, I'm hoping that the Zynga's hopefully that the Peak players know what Zynga games are and going out to them.
Yeah. Thinking positively about them. But again, I don't know. But that's a really good question. I would love to see some data for that.
Yeah. Really cool. Hey man, listen, always great to have you here.
Thank you.
Looking forward to the next episode.
Good to be here in the person.
Yeah, for a change. Yes,
yeah, it feels kind of weird. I know we're keeping distance, but we were hugging on the other side, so that's
but we were wearing masks. We were wearing masks.
Just kidding.
All right, man. Great to have you here.
Thank you.